Body Snatchers, 1993 film.
Body Snatchers is a 1993 American science fiction horror film directed by Abel Ferrara and starring Gabrielle Anwar, Billy Wirth, Terry Kinney, Meg Tilly, Christine Elise, Ari Lee Ermey, and Forrest Whitaker. It is loosely based on the 1955 novel The Body Snatchers by Jack Finney, with a screenplay by Nicholas St. John, Stuart Gordon, and Dennis Powley. Body Snatchers is the third film adaptation of Finney's novel, the first being Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1956, followed by a second adaptation of the same name in 1978. The plot is centered around the discovery that people working at a military base in Alabama are being replaced by perfect physical imitations grown from plant-like pods. The duplicates are indistinguishable from normal people except for their utter lack of emotion. The film marked director Ferrara's first venture into the science fiction genre as well as his first feature to receive a financial backing from a major film studio. Producer Robert H. Solo had already produced its 1978 predecessor Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Body Snatchers was first screened at the Cannes Film Festival on May 15, 1993, and given a limited U.S. theatrical release on January 14, 1994. It received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised the likeliness, realism, and special effects, though it was criticized for its plot. Steve Malone, an agent from the Environmental Protection Agency, is sent to a military base in Alabama to test possible effects on the surrounding ecological system caused by military actions. With him are Marty, his teenage daughter from his first marriage, Carol, his second wife, and Andy, Marty's half-brother. On their way to the base, they stop at a gas station. In the restroom, Marty is threatened by an MP with a knife. When he notices her fear, he lets go of her, satisfied that she shows an emotional response. Before she leaves the room, he warns her, "They get you when you sleep." Steve and his family move into their new home on the base, and Marty makes friends with the base commander's daughter Jen. On his first day in daycare, Andy runs away because he is recognized as an outsider among the other somehow conformist children. He is picked up and brought home by helicopter pilot Tim. Marty and Tim quickly feel attracted to each other. Meanwhile, while examining soil samples, Steve is approached by Medical Officer Major Collins, who asks him about psychological effects, particularly narcophobia, the fear of sleep, and their possible relation to toxication of the environment. Steve believes that a physiological reaction would be more likely. In the evening, Marty and Jen go to the bar attended by the station's military personnel, where they meet not only Tim but also the MP who threatened Marty at the gas station. With no emotion, he denies that they ever met before and suggests Tim take her home. That night, a group of soldiers can be seen picking giant pods from the river running by the base. When Andy wakes up and enters his mother's room, Carol's body crumbles to dust, while a naked soulless double emerges from the closet. Nobody believes Andy's story that his real mother is dead and the person pretending to be Carol is only an imposter. The following day, Steve witnesses an accident while he and some military members are in hazmat suits and sees an injury on a soldier that makes no sense. When a soldier reports the accident to General Pratt, he responds with no emotion. Steve takes a sample from the injured soldier's suit and speaks to a friend over the phone about examining the specimen. That night, Marty is nearly taken over by a duplicate emerging from the giant pods when she fell asleep during a bath, but she wakes and rips the tendrils from her face. While Carol is massaging Steve's back, he also falls asleep and is almost replaced by another duplicate, when Marty rushes in and stops the process. Carol attempts to convince Steve that the takeover is a good thing, claiming that it ends confusion and anger. She also claims that there is no place to go, as the events at the base are not an isolated incident. Steve is almost shocked and saddened into compliance, but Marty and Andy drag him out the door. Carol emits a shrill and mechanical scream that alerts other pod people to the presence of a human being. Now the majority in numbers, they swarm over the base chasing the remaining humans, including Tim, who is attacked by his friends but is able to escape. After hiding Marty and Andy in a warehouse, Steve enters Major Collins' office. The hysterical Major tries to call for help, but the line is blocked. While swallowing sleep prevention pills, Collins announces that it is too late to run, all they can do is fight. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a group of pod people, led by Base Commander General Platt. While Steve hides, the pod people try to convince the Major that the individual is not important, and that only conformity can solve the world's problems. The Major shoots himself rather than live in such a world. Steve returns to his children and tells them to follow him, claiming to have found a way out. They drive aimlessly through the military base, as loudspeakers shout out instructions for spreading the invasion by carrying out pods in trucks. Realizing that her father was replicated while he was away, Marty swerves the car to the side and tries to escape with her brother. Tim, who escaped his former comrades who tried to turn him into one of them, suddenly appears and Marty takes his gun and shoots the Steve duplicate. Pod Steve's body shrinks into a mass of seething, bloody goo. Tim manages to get hold of a helicopter gunship, but Marty and Andy are taken away by the pod people. They sedate both of them and take them to the base infirmary where the remaining human beings are being systematically duplicated by pods. Tim is able to rescue Marty, despite her naked pod duplicate trying to seduce him. Incomplete, it dies when he pulls its connecting tendrils off Marty. Marty and Tim leave the building, pretending to be pod people so they can get to Tim's helicopter to escape. However, they are spotted by Jen, now a pod duplicate, who gets suspicious and tells Marty she saw Andy looking for her. When Marty reacts by displaying emotion, Jen responds by giving out a pod scream to alert the other pod people. Tim and Marty manage to get in the helicopter and are joined at the last minute by Andy, who runs up to them. But right after taking off, Andy, who is actually a pod duplicate, attacks both and tries to bring down the helicopter. After a short scuffle, a heartbroken Marty is forced to throw Pod Andy out of the helicopter and he gives out a pod scream while falling to his death.
The ending of the film is an ambiguous one.
Tim destroys the trucks filled with pods with the helicopter's rockets, while Marty confesses her profound hatred in a voiceover narration, thereby hinting at a loss of humanitarian quality. While they land on another base, the words of Marty's replaced stepmother earlier in the film can be heard, suggesting that the phenomenon may have already spread beyond the army base. Where you gonna go? Where you gonna run? Where you gonna hide?
Nowhere. 'Cause there's no one like you left. Comments.
The story takes place on a military base, which is a great advantage for the complexity of the plot. It's a setting where the invasion begins at a strong point because first taking over a community of soldiers seems risky for the invaders, but since it's a small town, you can do it slowly and quietly. You don't arrive like on Independence Day to destroy the White House, you arrive quietly to increase your troops. By the time humanity realizes it, it's too late, they're everywhere, and there's nowhere you can run. The father of Marty, a teenager who needs excitement in her life, works for the United States Ministry of Health, and so their next destination is a military base where they soon discover that no one is who they say they are. This new approach to body snatchers already left aside the mystery. It didn't matter when the story begins but how it will end, and along the way there are good ideas scattered that lose the battle in the fight for audiences since the protagonist is a teenager, heir to the spirit of the 80s, and there we find the biggest weak point of the story. The character of Gabriel Anwar is the weakest of the entire film and crosses with other characters with greater interests such as the daughter of the general of the base, Anwar's father, the little brother, the stepmother. Here we find scraps of other versions of the script in which the psychiatrist played by Forrest Whitaker would have more than 2 sequences. But in return, this B-movie-esque Body Snatchers, directed by an Abel Ferrara chasing a paycheck, has the best human-to-body snatcher transformation sequences of all these films. The scene of Gabriel Anwar in the bathtub, asleep at the mercy of a pod, while the rest of her family suffers the same fate is legendary, both here and in the closing sequence, with a magnificent Meg Tilly lecturing her family. We find what this version should have been. As I said before, apart from the point of view jumping from one side to the other, the casting has a fundamental flaw. Gabriel Anwar was having her 5 minutes of glory, but she proves incapable of giving substance to her character. How different it would have been if the role had been exchanged with the scene-stealing Christine Elise. Meg Tilly is the best thing in the film, and Forrest Whitaker is so intense that you might have thought he was going to win an Oscar. Body Snatchers is fun and flies by, meaning it has a very light plot, which is very obvious since its protagonist is a girl under 19 years old. It's not difficult to know or guess that the target audience is young people. It's a marketing inherited from the 80s where if you want a horror movie to work at the box office, add some girls with 1 or more scenes showing skin, and the boys arrive alone, both in the film and at the box office. This is what makes you think you're in the middle of a B movie, but the plot is good, the scenery too, and the outcome could be contradictory. They give you hope of being able to fight, but the voiceover tells you that practically everything is lost. This dilemma didn't help the viewer generate a good impression, but in my opinion, humanity loses, we are invaded and exterminated. Reviews. Competing for the Palme d'Or, Abel Ferrara did a good job with Ms. 45, an excellent exploitation film. Larry Cohen, The Stuff, It's Alive. Wrote it and Stuart Gordon produced it, pretty big wheels for a B-movie. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, his favorite body snatcher film. I like the premise of Body Snatcher because it deals with the unconscious taking over the conscious, very Jungian. My favorite film of this type is Puppet Masters. It has a good tone, energetic but grounded, like a good episode of The X-Files. The cinematography looks good, nice and sharp, with good use of Dutch angles and general camera placement for effect. Meg Tilly was a very good villain. Horrible acting and abysmal plot, pointless characters. It has neat practical effects, but that's a 22% rating. This version has the same emotional range as the alien beings who are the antagonists of this film, and that's not exactly a positive thing. The epitome of the B-horror movie, complete with all the cheesy effects, music, and dialogue that goes with it. Is it the best of its kind? Far from it. And yet it's clearly a work of passion with the cast delivering decent performances. Entertaining but forgettable. That's all from me. I look forward to your comments. Bye.